Hello everybody. Once you have learned how to determine which figures are significant in a measurement, the next step is going to be how to calculate using significant figures. What we're going to do is we're going to divide it into two rules. The one that you're going to use most often in chemistry is going to be the multiplication and division rule. In fact, of the two rules, this one is easier than the adding and subtraction rule. According to the multiplication and division rule, what you do is you either multiply or divide like you normally do, and then at the end, when it's time to round according to significant figures, you're going to round according to which measurement has the least number of significant digits. Let me show you an example. At the bottom here, you see that 15.63 is being divided by 5.5. If you were to do this on your calculator, you would get this very long answer on your screen. Now, how do we round this answer? We don't want to record that entire thing. So if you notice, the number 15.63, all four digits are significant. The number 5.5 has two numbers that are significant. So here's what you do. When they are different, the one that will determine the rounding will be whoever is the lowest. And in this case, the lowest is going to be this number here, which only has two significant figures. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this long number and we're going to round to show only two digits. So we're going to keep the 2 and we're going to keep the 8. Now, very important, if this number here is a 5 or higher, we would have rounded up and it would have been 2.9. If it's a 4 or lower, it stays the same. In this example, it stays the same and our final answer is going to end up being 2.8. Now let's go over some more examples. Here we have two examples, A and B. In example A, you are being asked to multiply and divide. Since both use the same rule, it doesn't matter if both operations are involved in the same problem. So what you would do here is you would simply get your calculator and you would multiply 1.01 times 0.12 times 53.51, multiply those three, then divide by 96, and on your screen you should get 0.067556. Now, we don't want to leave that entire answer. So, according to the multiplication and division rule, we're going to round to whichever number has the least number of significant figures. Well, the number 1.01 has 3 significant figures. The number 0.12 only has 2. That 0 is a leading 0. It's not significant. 53.51 has 4 significant figures, and 96 only has 2. So the number that has the least is these two numbers, which is 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to round our answer to show only 2. Now remember, the first two zeros here don't count. Okay, we want to show 2 significant figures. So the 6 would be our first significant figure, and this would be our second. Now again, take a look at the neighbor here. Notice that if it's 5 or higher, you will round up. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this number, and it's going to end up being 0.068. And that will be our answer rounded to 2 significant figures. Okay? Look at example B. You got 56.55 multiplied by 0.920, then divided by 34.2585. Again, you do the math, and in this problem, you're going to end up getting 1.51863. Now, we want to round this number to significant figures. Well, this number here, 56.55, has 4. 0.920. The first 0 doesn't count, but that last 0 is significant. It's a trailing 0. There's a decimal point, so that one has technically 3 significant figures. And then the last number has all 6 are significant. So again, the rule is who's the lowest? Round by the lowest. The lowest in this example is 3. So we're going to get our answer here, our number, and we're going to round to show 3 significant figures. Again, this 8 will bump that number up, and we're going to end up getting 1.52. Okay? Here is the solution. If you want to pause and take a look at that, there's the 2 problems that I just did. Okay? Now let's do a quick skill builder here. We got 2 more problems. Notice the part A. You're multiplying 1.10 times 0.512 times 1.301 times 0.005, and then you're going to divide that by 3.4. So when you go ahead and plug that into your calculator, you're going to end up getting 0.0107754. Very long number. We don't want to show that. That's needs to be rounded. So since we're multiplying and dividing here, we can use the same rule, which is to go by the least. Well, let's take a look at our numbers. 1.10, that 0 is a trailing 0. There's a decimal point. So that one has 3 significant figures. 0.512, that leading 0 doesn't count. So that one also has 3 significant figures. 1.301 has 4. That's a captive or confined 0. That one is significant. And then the next one is 0.005. That one only has 1 significant figure, the 5. And then 3.4 has 2 significant figures. According to this, the number that has the least is the 0.005. So we want to show just 1 significant figure. Well, these first 3 zeros don't count. The first significant figure and the only one that we're going to end up showing would be this number here. Our answer ends up being 0.001 after rounding. Look at part B. In part B, you're multiplying 4.562 times 3.99870, and then you're going to divide by 89.5. If you go ahead and put that into your calculator and you solve, you're going to end up getting 0.203822004. Another long number. Again, we want to round this. So, again, we're going to use the multiplication division rule. 4.562 has 4 significant figures. 3.99870 has 6. That 0 at the end is a trailing 0, and there's a decimal point, so it counts. And the last number has 3. Clearly, the last number is the lowest with 3 significant figures. So remember, the first leading 0 doesn't count. We want to show 3. So here's our first, our second, and our third. Always pay attention to what number is after that 3. In this case, it's an 8. Because that number is greater than 5, that 3 is going to get bumped up, and it's going to end up being 0.204 after rounding correctly. Okay? So that is the rule when you either multiply or divide. Now, we're going to go to a second rule. This one's a little bit different. Okay? See, the multiplication and division rule has to do with which number in the calculation has the least amount of significant figures. When you're adding or subtracting, you'll see that it is not about who has the least number of significant figures. In fact, you're going to see, and I'm going to use this word, the word position. It's going to be based on comparing positions. According to this slide, it says when adding or subtracting measurements with significant figures, the result has the same number of decimal places as the measurement with the fewest number of decimal places. So I'm going to explain this using the word position. Now, here's a recommendation. There are 2 sample problems here, okay? This is number 1. You're adding 3 numbers, and down here you got number 2. You're subtracting 2 numbers. I'm going to give you a recommendation. what I would do is, if you have an adding or subtraction problem and it's written like these two are, which is horizontally, I would rewrite the problem vertically. Watch how I'm going to make this very visual for you. Okay? The first example, and I have the numbers here, I'm going to write them out for you, is you are being asked to add 5.74. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write them vertically, which is up, down. Now, when I do this, you must align the numbers. The next number was 0.823. Notice how I'm aligning everything according to the decimal point. And then the next one was 2.651, and we were asked to add the three numbers. If you get your calculator and you do the math, you're going to get 9.214. Now, here is how we round. We're going to round according to position, okay? What you do is, I want you to look at the right side of the numbers, which is over on this side over here. Let's look at this position right here that I put an arrow pointing down. Notice that this first number is blank here. This one has a number, this one has a number. They both have a significant figure, but the first number doesn't. So here's the goal. We want to look for a position where every number that you're adding or subtracting has a significant figure in that position. In this position, this guy is missing a significant figure. So we're going to ignore this position and we're going to go to the next position. I want you to look at this position over here where the 4 is. Let's go down. This number has a significant figure in that position. So does this number, and so does this number. In this position, all the numbers that we are adding have a significant figure in that position. So here's what happens. The minute that you find a spot where all the numbers have a significant figure in that spot, I'm going to make a mark over here, this position right over here, that becomes the last position that is significant. That means that when we round this number, our number is going to end right here. You're not going to show anything past this position right over here. Now, again, rounding rules apply. There's a 4 here. Had that been a 5, you would bump that up. But since it's less than 5, you're going to keep this the same. And when this gets rounded, it becomes 9.21, and that would be the answer to this problem. Okay? Now, these are the sample problems that were provided. Let me show you the one you're subtracting. Again, if it's written horizontally, change it vertically, so you got 4.8, and then you're going to subtract minus 3.965. Okay? Align them properly, and then go ahead in your calculator, do the math, and you're going to get this. And now it's rounding time. So let's do what I said earlier. Go to the last position. Compare the numbers. He doesn't have a significant figure. Only he does. So this position's no good. Move over to the next position. Compare him again. He has a blank here. He has a number. Again, that position's no good. Go to the next position. He has a significant figure, and so does he. This is the first time where all the numbers in that position have a significant figure. So this is the position that we're going to use to round our numbers. So look at the number's going to end right here. Look at the number after the 8. Since this number is less than 5, this will stay the same. So when this gets rounded, okay, again, it has to end in this position, your answer ends up being 0.8. Okay? So there you have your second example. Now, let's go to the ones from our book. In sample A, and these have the solutions on the bottom, so we'll do these together. You have, you're adding 0.987 plus 125.1, and then you're subtracting 1.22. Okay, so even though it's a mix of adding and subtracting, they both use the same rule. So you could do this in one problem. Notice how it's already written vertically and it's aligned. So if you go over here to where the solution is, they added the first two numbers, subtracted the third, and they got 124.867. Okay? And if you notice, they followed the rule. You'll notice they looked at the first position, and this position here, you got nothing. It's blank here and it's blank here. So they moved on to the next position over here, and this number here, the middle number, is also blank. Finally, when they got to this third position over here, notice that each number has a spot. There's a 9 there with the first number, a 1 with the second number, and a 2 with the third number. That position, which they drew a line going down, is the cutoff point. That is the position where the number is supposed to end, because at that position, they all have a significant figure. Now notice when you round, the number is going to end in that spot, but notice that next to the 8, you have a 6. So that 6 is going to cause that 8 to bump up. So when they rounded it, it became 124.9. Okay? Take a look at B. You got 0.765. They're subtracting it by 3.449. Then they're subtracting it again, minus 5.98. And obviously, you're going to get a negative number. That doesn't do anything to the rules. The rules apply to positive and negative numbers. So here's what's going to happen. After the math was done, they got negative 8.664. So now it's time to round. Notice in the first position, right over here, that the third number has a blank, doesn't have a significant figure. So that position's no good. So you're going to go to the next position right over here. And in that position, every number has a significant figure. So notice they drew a line designating the cutoff point. And when it's rounded, notice that after the 6, there's a 4, so that number won't change. And it ends up being negative 8.66 as the final answer. Okay, so we're going to finish up with two final samples here. Our first one is 2.18 plus 5.621 plus 1.5870 minus 1.8. Go ahead, plug those numbers into your calculator. Let's see what you get. After doing this, I ended up getting 7.588. Okay? Those are the numbers that I got. Now, it's time to determine the rounding. So let's take a look at the positions. Since we are adding and subtracting, we're going to use the addition-subtraction rule, and you'll notice that in the first position here, there's a blank, blank, blank. Okay? The only number that had a significant figure there was the third number, because that 0 is significant, being a trailing 0. Let's move to the next position. In the next position, right over here, we got a blank over here as well. Okay? This one has a 1, this one has a 7, and this one has a blank. So that position is no good. Let's move over to the next position in line. This one has an 8, then the next number has a 2, the next number has an 8, but the final number here is also blank. Again, that position's no good. So we move to the next position. If you look at this one, each number has a significant figure. You got a 1 there with the first number, a 6 there with the second number, a 5 with the third number, and an 8 with the fourth number. So the cutoff point here is going to be this position right over here. Okay? That's where the number is going to end. So this is the 5. You have to pay attention to its neighbor. Since the number next to it is an 8, that will round that 5 up. So when this gets rounded, it's going to end up being 7.6 due to rounding rules. Okay? Now, take a look at B. You got 7.876 minus 0.56, so you're going to subtract those numbers. Then you're going to add 123.792. Go ahead and do that. Just use your calculator. And let's compare answers. I got 1, 3. Let me make this a little smaller here so that we can align everything. We got 1, 3, 1, and then the decimal point here, 108. Little difficult. It's very small numbers. And that's what I got after doing the math on my calculator screen. So, time for rounding. Let's look at the positions. First, if you notice, we're going to look at this third position here. And this one has a 6, this one's blank, and the other number, the third number, has a 2. Okay, so that one's not going to work. Let's move over another position. When we go here, we got a 7, so that one has a significant figure. The next number has a 6, and the third number has a 9. So this looks like the position that's going to work for us. Notice that this position is the hundredths place. So if we draw a line here, okay, it will be right over here. I didn't align that very well, but you could see that it's going to be the hundredths place. That's the cutoff point. That's where the number is going to end. So notice, always pay attention. After the last number, notice there's an 8 over here, which means that when we round, this is going to get bumped up. So when you round, this number is going to end up being 131.11. Now, one of the things that I'd like to emphasize is that students mix up the rules all the time, okay? The addition and subtraction rule is based on aligning the numbers, comparing the positions, okay? And by doing that, you can determine where the cutoff point is. When you're multiplying and dividing, that one, the rule is completely different. It's based on which number has the least number of significant figures, okay? So it's very easy to confuse one rule with the other. Of the two rules, the multiplication division rule is the easier of the two, okay? Fortunately, in chemistry, the majority of the time, what we're going to be using happens to be the multiplication and division rule. Occasionally, we'll use the addition and subtraction, but multiplying and dividing, which is the easier of the two rules, is the most oftenly used rule. Okay? And that will conclude our lesson on calculating with significant digits using the multiplication addition rule and the addition subtraction rule.